And we're back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to be talking about the team who, in my opinion, might be one of the most cursed franchises in all of the NBA. Now, when you think of cursed franchises, like one team that immediately comes to mind is the Los Angeles Clippers. And there's a lot of merit into that conversation. So for one, they've only had one Western Conference Finals appearance since they've been a franchise, and they've had to deal with all sorts of hardships. I mean, blowing 3-1 leads in the postseason, losing in series where the Clippers are expected to be the favorites, having players like Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan not working out. Then getting players like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which was expected to be the best defensive duo best two-way duo, since Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, which is absolutely ridiculous. It was a ridiculous comparison then, and it's even more ridiculous now. But that team was crippled with injuries, and they couldn't really make it that far. And ironically enough, they made it farther without Kawhi Leonard playing in a majority of the playoff games. But that is one of the teams that comes to mind when you think of the most cursed team in the NBA, right? And I mean, not to mention how they ended up trading for Paul George, and it turns out that they had to give up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is probably the best point guard in the NBA right now. One of the best point guards in the NBA, top two at the very least. And it's been bad for the Clippers. But I think that it's been even worse for the Pelicans, right? Now, the Pelicans, they're also in this argument for being one of the more cursed teams in the NBA, and I'll explain. So, they had a highly touted pick in Chris Paul, arguably one of the best players in the entire franchise's history. They could not build a team around him, and because of that, Chris Paul ended up getting traded over to the Clippers, right? He was supposed to get traded over to the Lakers, but then that trade was waived because it would have been way too overpowered. If only they did that when the Kevin Durant decided to sign with Golden State. If only, but that's besides the point. So then they get another highly touted pick with Anthony Davis. They could not build a team around him until they ended up getting DeMarcus Cousins. Then once they get DeMarcus Cousins, it's been revealed that he gets injured. I believe it was an ACL injury. It completely sidelined him for the series, and he was no longer the same player that he was either on the Kings or on the Pelicans with his time there. Then, because of this, Anthony Davis forced his way out and ended up getting traded to the Lakers, where he ends up winning a championship. And now, this season, actually no, they got another highly touted draft pick in the NBA with Zion, and we all know how Zion's career has been going so far. Like, I really want him to succeed, but Zion so far, he's just been injury prone, and he hasn't been able to be there for the team when the team really needs him, and it really stinks because there's somebody else in the chat. Spike Up. Where does Zion end up? New Orleans or moving on? Well, actually, I was going to get into this, but the Pelicans there's a report going around saying that the Pelicans are actually planning on sticking with Zion Williamson as the centerpiece for their team. And again, there's some merit to this, and again, there's also some discourse with this because it's similar to like the Joel Embiid situation. Like, we know Joel Embiid is talented, we know Zion is talented. They just cannot stay on the court for their team long enough and be healthy as often as they need to be healthy for their team to succeed. The difference is that with Joel Embiid, I don't think you're going to succeed regardless whether he's on the court or not, just because of his play style. But Zion is still unproven, and it's still a different story. And a big reason why it's unproven is because of injuries. And it's not just Zion with the Pelicans either. CJ was injured. DeJounte Murray was injured. And now they're one of the worst teams in the Western Conference because they can't stay healthy. And not having Zion on the team just ultimately makes it worse. The team is already lacking a center. So a defensive center, and you need more, as much scoring as you can. Zion is there to do it, but he's not in these games. It's just you can't. And this trade so far with the Pelicans involving DeJounte Murray is starting to look like a little bit more of a bust until they can make it, obviously right now it's a little bit too early to tell, but as of right now it's starting to look like a bust because DeJounte and CJ can't stay on the court. So it's not looking good for the Pelicans, and those are my reasons for why I think they are one of the most cursed franchises in the NBA right now. Well, not just right now, but in the history of its franchise. Because again, the Clippers, they're really close to that argument. They're really close to being that team. But I think the Pelicans, they have other situations as well where it's just like, can't get it done because of this, can't get it done because of that, can't get it done because of injuries or failure to manage a team the way that they want it to. And more focusing a little bit more on Zion and the expectations that the Pelicans have for his future. Apparently, despite the injuries and despite the whispers of him getting traded, or despite the whispers of him signing with a new team, or doubting him and his ability to stay on the court, New Orleans apparently isn't going to be giving up on Zion just yet, according to Shams. Instead, they're going to double down, according to Shams. And the plan is to get Zion healthy and build the right pieces around him. And that's really, the Pelicans, they are sticking with Zion. And this could go well or this could go really, really bad. Because, again, it's rare that we see Zion Williamson healthy in the season, whatever the reason might be, whether it be because Stephen A. Smith thinks he's eating a table, whether it be because he's hurt his ankle, which was a problem in the NBA, not in-season tournament, the play-in games, where he ended up dropping 40 points, but of course ended up getting injured at the end of the game, costing the Pelicans their season. And doubling down on this is extremely risky. Obviously, Zion is one of the most dominant players in the NBA right now. When he's healthy, he is a physical force, and it's very difficult for defenders to really guard him because of how strong he is. But he's only played 6 games this season, and the Pelicans are 4-18. You don't need to, you can easily connect the dots on why they're 4-18. But New Orleans isn't giving up because they can't afford to. Zion is the face of this franchise, and he's basically the key to everything with New Orleans drafting him number 1. But so far with these injuries, it's really it's looking grim. And the Pelicans, even with these injuries, the Pelicans have shown flashes of being contenders when he is healthy. It's just they cannot keep him on the court. They were a top 3 team in the Western Conference last season before Zion went down with an injury. That's what that season right there is sort of, I think, what keeps the Pelicans believing in Zion and believing in his ability to lead the team and actually wanting to build around him. The problem isn't Zion's talent, it's just his availability. The hamstring issues, the conditioning questions, the absences that are happening. Again, rather similar to Joel Embiid and his injuries, and just not, well, right now it seems like Joel Embiid just doesn't want to play basketball. I have no idea what's going on over there in Philly, but I haven't seen him step foot on the court in a very long time. And I expect Zion to be a top power forward, top small forward, whichever position he's going to play, most likely power forward. I expect him to be a top power forward when he actually plays in the NBA and when he plays in these games. But how long are the Pelicans going to wait? How long are they going to wait until they finally decide to pull the plug on this guy? It's really unclear, and this could be a mistake. It genuinely could be a mistake. And I don't know where they would go if this risk doesn't really work out for them. I really don't know. And it's they have to believe. That's really what the Pelicans are doing. They are believing in their best player. And the Pelicans know that they have a core that they can actually contend with Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and young guys like Herbert Jones, Trey Murphy, and the now aforementioned DeJounte Murray, who we have no idea whether or not he's actually going to stay on the Pelicans. But again, he is a very solid piece to the team. But still, believing is only going to get you so far. And this is a very risky move that the Pelicans are going to take, but it is a move that they're going to double down on and they're going to stick with, which I'm not entirely sure that I agree on. But I think they're one of the most cursed franchises, if not the most cursed franchise. Jeez, my English was awful there. One of the most, if not the most cursed franchises in the NBA right now. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that take. Do you guys think the Clippers are more cursed than them? Maybe you guys think there's some other team in the NBA that's actually more cursed than them. But that's really all that I have for this segment. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the final segment, which is just doing a recap of all of the games that went down yesterday and doing some predictions because there's a lot of games that are happening tonight. And I want to get into those NBA games right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.